Well, hey, how's it going, pre-calc students? About the only good thing I could think of about teaching down in my basement here. I can wear my old sweatshirts and hat and just be kind of comfortable, but that's about the only good thing. I certainly miss seeing you guys in person and, just talking to you every day. So, anyway, today, this is video 3. I keep thinking about this. I say something at the end of the videos like, okay, video 3 is going to do this, but as I think about what I want to talk about, like I said, I don't want to make the videos too long, so you can get things in small segments, and 15 to 20 minutes is plenty. So, what I'd like to talk about this video is just from a standpoint of, I got to fill in the unit circle now. Just for memory. And again, hesitating to use the word memorize because I don't, there is some memorization, yes, but a lot of it is more patterns and being able to remember a few things that make it easy on you. And I want to talk about those things. So I'm going to use this board over here to talk about what do you need to memorize. Okay, what's got to be in our heads and start doing this. And then I'm going to start filling in this unit circle a little bit, but I'm not going to fill it in its entirety like I did yesterday or in video 2. I'm going to get you to a point and let you sort of run with it. But anyway, here we go. So some things that we have to have in our head, like what do I need in my head? Well, one, you have to have those coordinates and those numbers that came from the 30, 60, 90 triangle and the 45, 45, 90 triangle. So, you have to have the square root of 3 over 2 and 1/2 in your brain. They have to be there. Secondly, those always travel together. Sometimes the square root of 3 over 2 is first as the x-coordinate, sometimes the 1/2 is, and it depends. I'll talk about that too. I think it would be really nice if you knew that square root of 3 over 2 is the decimal 0.866, and you certainly already do know that 1/2 is exactly 0.5. Secondly, you have to have the number square root of 2 over 2 in your head. And I'll write it twice just for the heck of it, because they travel in partners as well. Square root of 2 over 2 and square root of 2 over 2. Square root of 3 over 2 and 1/2 are for all the points that are in increments of 30 and 60 degrees around the unit circle, for the most part, now excluding 90 and 180 and 270, of course. And square root of 2 over 2 has to do with all the points associated with 45 degrees, which are the halfway points of each quadrant. So those things need to be in your head. It would also be nice if you knew the decimal associated here is 0.707. Okay? So those are some of the, I think, the necessary things to know. You should also recall, notice I've got my circle here. I took off the definition. It's just like, here's a circle. You are to know that this is a unit circle. It is placed at the origin the center of the circle is at the origin of an XY axis, and the radius of this circle is 1 unit. So with that being said, here's some things that I think should be, you should be able to do. Right, if you've watched the first 2 videos, especially video number 2 with how the unit circle comes together and, actually using these 2 triangles and such, you should be able to start doing this. Now, here's some things, again, you can do without the triangles at all, or even knowing that. If this circle is radius 1, automatic, this point right here is 1, 0, because it's directly 1 to the right of the origin, straight right 1, 1, 0. This is up here for the same reason, 0, 1, negative 1, 0, and down here, 0, negative 1. So those can be done without the aid of any triangle. Now, let's talk blue dots, first quadrant. Here's the first blue dot. You're gonna have to make some sort of a memorization, unfortunately, that's 30 degrees. That's the first stop, 30 degrees of rotation. 1/3 of the way to 90, so that should make okay sense. By the way, I could fill those in while I'm at it too. This was 0 degrees, 90 degrees, 180 degrees, 270 degrees, and 360 degrees. So there's that. But the question starts to be thought of. These two blue points. This one being 60. Square root of 3 over 2 and 1/2, where do they go? You know, and kids and students try to memorize where goes, what goes where. Folks, there's not really the memorization other than you need these two numbers in your brain. But look where this point is. Again, I kept focusing on video 2, origin. The origin's your reference point. Look where this point is in terms of x, y. From this origin, it's way over to the right. Look at that. That's almost to 1. There's no way that this coordinate is 1/2. Half's right here. That's 0.866. Square root of 3 over 2. And that's 1/2. The y-coordinate, because you're going up this far. And if you look where that lands of the y-coordinate, it's halfway up to this 1. Therefore, that kind of helps you out. If this point, square root of 3 over 2, 1/2, this point has to be 1/2 square root of 3 over 2. And not just because it has to be. Look where it is. Starting at the origin, half. And then up, look how far up that goes. Almost up to 1, 0.866, that's square root of 3 over 2. So we have that. Now I'm actually going to change gears a minute to this, because I'm sticking to the first quadrant for the most part, except for the 90, 180, 270 thing. This red dot. You are to know that this is 45 degrees. So you kind of have to know that first quadrant a little bit to know the 30, 60, and the 45 right in the middle. And every 45 dot, every red dot, the middle of the quadrants, square root of 2 over 2, square root of 2 over 2. And there is, again, numerical support. Consider just the x-axis going left. As you start here, there's halfway, lines up with that point, that's why the x-coordinate's half. 0.7 comes next, square root of 2 over 2. 0.866 comes next, square root of 3 over 2, and then all the way over to 1. Those x-coordinates are very numerically in order. And that's important to I'm not just memorizing everything. I have a common sense about this thing. And that's what I want from you guys. Now, if I'm being honest about this, the rest of the points, the coordinates, can be filled in based on the first quadrant. And based off of some common sense. This point right here is a reflection of, this point is a reflection of that. So if I reflect this straight across, and note where it is again, left a long ways, up half. So negative square root of 3 over 2, comma 1/2 up. That's one of the red dots, that's negative square root of 2 over 2, up square root of 2 over 2. This one is only half, and then up a long ways. This transfers to there, this transfers to there, this transfers to there. And then it just continues. It goes straight down to third, straight down to third, straight down to third quadrant, straight across 4, straight across 4, straight across 4. You can fill in all those coordinates like we saw yesterday. Now, the only other thing I want to talk about a little bit, because when we think about taking the unit circle quiz, and I have to decide how we're going to pull that off a little bit in this online situation. We don't use a calculator or notes for this quiz. I mean, think about that. If I gave you notes, you would just look at the circle and copy it from one picture to another. That proves nothing. It's not your typical quiz. You know exactly what's coming at you. So you should know how to do this without the aid of those things. Now, as far as filling in the rest of the coordinates, we talked a little bit about this yesterday, and I'm going to talk more about it right now for just a minute or so. The black and the blue dots, skip the red, are 30 degrees apart, each of them. So I'm pretty sure you know how to count by 30s, because if you don't, then you know how to count by 10s. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 110, 120. See, I can start filling in 120 degrees. For this dot, I'm not putting in the coordinates, but 120, 130, 140, 150. See, everybody can count by 30s because everybody can do 10 3 times. And in this 180, we know that's halfway around, so that's a checkpoint. If I've made a math error here, it should come out here, and from 150 to 160, 170, 180 matches up. Keep going. 190, 200, 210. That's this point right here. 210. 220, 230, 240. And then we have another checkpoint. Most of us know that that's 270, so when we're at 240, we're at 250, 260, 270. Check. Keep going. 280, 290, 300. And then 310, 320, 330. That's this one. And then, again, we have our final checkpoint. Don't ever take for granted. We all count funky sometimes, even if you're like, seriously, it's counting by tens. We all get lost once in a great while, but that's 330, 340, 350, 360. Back to the beginning. Now, the red dots, I told you before, you can think of things as, here's this, 45 degrees up. Here's 90, that's 45 degrees up. But the red dots are 15 degrees apart from either blue dot on its side. So I find it a little bit easier to add 15. And I always tell, I'm like, everybody can add 15 in their head. It's add 10, add 5. So if I go to this dot next, knowing that that's 120, 10 puts me to 130, another 5, 135. So knowing that this is 135 degrees is reasonable. If that's 210, this is 15 more. 210, 220, add the 10, add the 5, 225. So this is 225. And last but not least, this is 300. I mean, that was the nicest one because you're just going up 15, so 315. So that's kind of the extent of this video, and that's a little bit better video. It's less than 15 minutes. It's a little bit shorter and easier to talk about. But I just wanted to talk about, hey, how do I do this? What should I be thinking? What should I be practicing? What do I have to memorize? You gotta memorize that. It is what it is. You have to know how to do that. So that's it for this section. I'm going to do one more video, video 4. And that one's going to include the radian measurements. And once I do that, that's all you're going to see on this circle. I'm going to blank it out again so that all you see is the dots. And we're going to talk about radian measurement and how do I list all of the radian measurements on top of this. And that'll be the last thing I do in this video segment. So 4 little videos on the unit circle before I move on to the next topic. Thanks for tuning in, guys.